What's going on, everyone? Today we're going to be going over the 1911 trigger assembly and hammer again. Somebody brought to my attention in the comments section on the previous video that I did on this that it wasn't very detailed. I wasn't naming out parts and their function. So that's essentially what I'm going to be focusing on today. So let's get started. And what that is your mainspring housing, and it essentially provides trigger for this piece right here, which is attached to your hammer, and that's your strut, your hammer strut. This, of course, is your safety plunge, your beaver tail, your hammer and hammer strut bar, your disconnect, and your sear. Now let's go over how all this works out. It's your trigger bow. The bottom of the trigger can be indicated by this hole and that screw. And what that screw does is it restricts how much movement you can get to your magazine catch. So it'll essentially stop at a certain point. And you can adjust that back and forth. But if you adjust it too far in, then you won't be able to pull your trigger back far enough in order to engage your disconnect and your sear. But inside your firearm, this is essentially what it looks like. You also have your sear spring, and that lays in there like so, with this middle bar resting on your disconnect, with the hammer strut on top of it. And that applies pressure to the whole thing, so when you push the trigger back, it will move your sear out of the way, allowing your trigger to come forward and strike the hammer. This also serves a few other purposes. When it's resting inside the firearm, you'll have your middle strut on top of your disconnect, like so. And this one will be resting on your sear, right there. This bar, however, is there to put tension on your beaver tail. And how this beaver tail works is it rests in a position to where it won't allow that sear to move, but when you push it down, then it can move freely. So when you apply pressure, you're essentially moving this out of the way so that your sear can move. And if you don't apply pressure to it, then this will not be able to engage your disconnect. Of course, you also have your magazine catch and release. And this serves two functions. Number one, it helps you operate your magazine, but it also prevents your trigger from falling out of your firearm. That bar right there. All right, let's go ahead and get this bad boy put back together, and we'll discuss all the functions as we do so. First off, you're going to need to put your trigger back in. And this is often pretty tight, so you're going to have to weasel it in there a little bit. Magazine catch. This is going to be a little tricky because you're going to have to move this screw as you're pushing in order to get it to lock into place. And you'll know when it happens because you'll feel it. This is just a little example of how this works. You got this notch right here, and inside that notch houses this little guy right here. And that is essentially what you're trying to move into place. And it comes out and rests against the housing inside here. Once you get it into place, you'll feel that snap into place. And an easy way to test is just to push on your magazine release. And if you don't have it correctly, this will just pop out. Now keep in mind when putting this together, this flat bar goes against your trigger bow, and this is your sear, and that hook goes into your trigger assembly. Like so. It's real easy to get these confused, but one general way that I like to think about it is this flat bar goes towards the front of your firearm, that hook goes towards the back. When you're putting this in, I like to use tweezers just because, I mean, this is small moving parts in a very small moving, or a small area to work in. Now there's a hole inside your action right there. And we're going to have to fit the top of this assembly into that hole. So the holes where the pin needs to go line up. Now this is going to be a little difficult the first couple times you do it, but after you do it a few times, it gets pretty easy. Now, while you're at this stage, keep in mind that that pin will very easily move. When you have this whole thing assembled, there's going to be tension on everything that'll hold these pins into place, so you don't have to worry about these coming out when you're firing your weapon. Next up will be your trigger bar strut. Beaver tail. goes in right here with your safety plunger. However, before you put this in, you need to put your sear spring in. And there's a certain way this goes in. So you have 3 bars. And the purpose of these bars is to apply tension in 2 specific areas for your trigger assembly and 1 spot for your beaver tail. It is very important that this spring rests on your sear, and this part of the spring rests on your disconnect, not underneath. If it is underneath the disconnect, the firearm will not operate correctly. And what this is doing is that's providing tension against that disconnect and your trigger bow, so that when you pull your trigger, it provides that tension that you need in order to get the poundage that you would want on a trigger, if that makes any sense. Put your strut down. Get your beaver tail in place. And now you can put your safety in. Now, safety is engaged by this bar. This bar is spring loaded at the moment. Right down in there. And you can push it out of your way. If you have something small enough to fit in there, you can in fact push it out of your way in order to get it into place. Operating your hammer should allow the inside guts to move out of the way and let you put this in nice and flush. All right, and that's all I got for now. Quick note, I do appreciate the criticism that I got for the last video, and any further criticism would be greatly appreciated, because the more I know about what I miss and the things that people would like to see, the better my videos will get. And hopefully that makes us all a little bit happier. Anyway, if that was in any way helpful to you, please like the video and subscribe. Thank you for your time.